Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to Life Cycles Live. This is discussions about people, methods, and assets that we value in our current maintenance, reliability, asset management, you name it, these different industries that take care of assets throughout the world. Today, I'm speaking about something that's it's applicable to those fields of work, but it's also much bigger, and that's about entrepreneurship. Being someone that espouses to some degree to have an entrepreneur as part of my identity, this topic means something to me. Hopefully, it means something to some of you, particularly if you're already involved in entrepreneurship or are interested in entrepreneurship and determining whether it's something that's right for you or not. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of energy that goes into entrepreneurship. And so I just wanted to kind of have a general discussion about why some people do what they're doing. And if you've looked into entrepreneurship much, you'll note that there's a lot of recommendations about when to look into entrepreneurship. If it's going to be your full-time job or if it's something you do on the side. And that thing that's done on the side is often referred to as a side hustle, right? And so I'm involved in a bit of a side hustle here at East Partnership. Okay. And the reason I say that is because this isn't my primary source of income. This isn't my primary career as much as I love doing it. And I spend a significant amount of time at night and on the weekends working on this business. It's not my core business hours job, and it's not my core salary, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. So if you're the kind of person that's interested in a side hustle, becoming an entrepreneur, sometimes this is a very good way for you to venture into that type of work. So what we do at East Partnership is a good fit for entrepreneurship. It's a group of consultants that work together to bring knowledge management and training assets to our friends and family and clients around the world. So if people own assets, they are interested in maintaining and managing those programs and assets, then they may find the education products that we produce interesting or of value to them. And our model is based off of consultants who are subject matter experts in their fields presenting their unique quality training products to clients, right? So this is a pretty cool business for us to be in. As you can tell from my description, they're mostly consultants. They spend the majority of their time consulting industry and not necessarily training. In fact, many of them don't want to do training all day. They'd rather do consulting and then have training as an additional function of their consultancy or a part of what they do for consulting. Other consultants love training, would train all day if they could, but they find more work in the consulting than they do the training. So big mixed bag. We get all kinds. We're very selective about who we have in our group. But the moral of this is not to talk about East Partnership. It's to show you why entrepreneurship has many different faces. And even if you don't work for a corporation or a company like I do and do this on the side, you may find yourself as an independent consultant and you're already an entrepreneur and you do something like this on the side to supplement your business. So not necessarily non-entrepreneur to entrepreneur in that sense, but you get the point, right? So don't think about it as being too extreme, whether you're someone that works for a company during your core hours and then shifts to an entrepreneur mindset on the off hours, or if you're someone that does your own thing during the day and you also supplement your work in another business and another line of effort. So what are we doing here, right? Why side hustle? I mean, is it some people think, oh, it's because your primary job doesn't pay enough. No, that's not the issue for me, right? It's because, excuse me, you really wish you were working somewhere else. I'm perfectly fine with the company I work with. I love working with them. Maybe it's not the kind of work you want to be doing. Love the work I have, right? So it's just that I wanted to do something that's my own. I've had this before I got this job, and I'm continuing that. I wasn't just going to leave that idea and that work behind because I I have this great career. To me, they come together. They're not two separate things. They actually work together to form the whole of my professional work life, right? So you stay up late, and I've got some notes here. That's why I keep looking down. But you stay up late, you work weekends, you grind into the negative sometimes on your budget. Why? What itch are you aiming to scratch? Why do this? If it's not the money, if it's not where you work being an issue, if it's not that you're not doing what you love to do, why do it? Well, for some people, there's like a personal challenge and satisfaction that they derive from owning their own business, uh, creating something new out of, seemingly thin air. But you're creating a new business, working with different clients, creating something maybe that industry doesn't currently have. Maybe even the industry you serve is in your main career. Being careful to avoid conflicts of interest, of course, but you get the point. There's some motivators outside of your normal work that could be leading you toward that type of entrepreneurship, right? Um, you could be building something for the future. Maybe what you're building is something that has some longevity, that you're willing to spend some time getting this thing off the ground methodically. You're working with it, and that you're hopeful that it'll grow and it'll become something successful. I'm not saying you have to be rich. I'm just saying successful. And it's something that you can enjoy in the future when this career is over, or maybe you transition to that in the future, depending on where you are at in your life. Maybe it's something you would like to do in retirement. And when I say retirement, I don't mean like full on retirement, but maybe retirement from your career, right? So maybe like a good example would be when I was in the military. 20, 30 years, you could get a pension from the military between your 20 and 30 year mark, depending on when you left or when the service needed you to leave. And you could have something in place for when you transition. The same thing goes for careers in the civilian sector. Once you've met your obligation for a pension, or you've invested enough time and tenure with the company, and you want to do something between the time you leave that company and when you collect on your 401k, whatever the case may be, rather than go for work for someone else, you'd rather work for yourself, have your own baby, right? So you could have been building something for the future. Another thing is leaving a personal legacy. And I've heard this more and more from people that are in this type of work than people that are on the outside thinking about it, right? People that have been doing it for a while, they're like, hey, I'm leaving a legacy, right? My family will always have this, right? I'm leaving a business to my children, or this is something that me and my siblings did together, and maybe we end it, or maybe we sell it, or maybe we just whatever. We just keep going until we're not doing it anymore. But it's something that we built as a family, and it's something that we can carry. Maybe it's something that you inherited, and you have the itch just like whoever you inherited it from. Maybe it was your father or mother that left this business to you, grandparents, whatever. Mine was an off the ground thing. It wasn't the first time I had started a new business, but it was the first time I had done it with this type of approach and this type of selective nature with some of my partners, and just a totally different approach to entrepreneurship than I had considered in the past. And it's been a very good fit for my lifestyle, and it's helped me scratch some of those itches. Maybe it's something in the future I can depend on. The other thing is, some people want a supplemental source of income, and there's several reasons for doing that. Some people want a supplemental source of income because they don't trust relying on a single source of income to support their family. And if something were to happen to that, they would like something there as like a safety net. The other type of financial security it can provide is just a buffer, right? Maybe you have very strict guidelines about what you do with the money you earn in your current job or career or whatever. And you want money from outside of that to invest in other things, maybe vacations for the family, maybe into your retirement. I don't know, whatever, man. Maybe you want a Corvette. I don't know. But, there's some demand there for additional funds, and you kind of don't want to touch your primary source of income for that. Others use it to build a nest egg, right? Or even just savings. And that's a very smart thing to do. But these are all reasons that people will do this. They'll put themselves to this additional work after normal work hours on the weekends. And, I haven't mentioned something very important yet, and that is just this personal satisfaction that comes from working and helping with other people, right? So you get a lot of that through your regular work, but if you work in an industry like I do, it may take a while for um, that type of reward with a client, because you're doing long term stuff, and you get wins. Don't get me wrong, you get a lot of wins along the way, but there's just something about helping people one on one in a very unique industry, right? Like, and so if you're an entrepreneur, you probably find yourself in a certain niche or in a certain application, and it's very rewarding for you to share something that you're passionate and you have subject matter expertise in with someone else, and it's very valuable for them. So that's obviously a win for both of you. Some people find that they're just turning a hobby into something more. They've always loved doing something. They kind of never thought they could do it for a living. So they went into something else, and they found later on in life that they were willing to invest a little bit more time and effort now that they have the freedom to invest financially in something. They're more stable later in their lives. They decide to go ahead and do a little something with it. Maybe they're not shooting for the stars, but they're putting some time into something they love to do, and they reap enjoyment from that work. And it's kind of like fulfilling a little bit of a lifelong dream, right? And then the opportunity to do that being different at that point in life than maybe earlier in their lives when they were young professionals trying to get their feet under them and get off the ground. Let's see here, and then of course you could use your entrepreneurship and your side hustle to work in a different industry entirely, right? So I work with defense. I might work with non-defense contractors and non-defense clients, and doing completely different types of work than I do in my primary career at Amentum. And it's okay for me to do that because it's not in competition with my company, and they're aware that I had this business before I came there. And I get to do something really cool. Like, I'm not going to do training courses for Amentum for clients as a regular thing. We know that. We knew that when I took this job, right? But I love to teach. So my small business gives me the opportunity to do something that I love. That's not my primary source of income. It's not my primary career field, and it's not something that I depend on for a livelihood in full. And so that's all very cool. So you may find yourself in that same situation. Now, there are some people that do this for the sheer excitement of it. And I don't know what to tell those people. Some people do it because they're adrenaline junkies, and they get a big kick out of investing and taking risk and working hard and flipping something that's never been done before, and they get a little shot of adrenaline from that, and it kind of motivates them and keeps them going. And I can sympathize with that, because that's not like the primary reason by what I do, but there is a lot that I gain personal satisfaction wise along those same lines, right? When I help one of my partner trainers get a course off the ground and showcase their expertise to their learners, I feel a tremendous amount of satisfaction for them. And it makes me feel great to have helped them because they're friends of mine, right? And they're also great people and good business partners and all that stuff. But you're also passing on this legacy of learning to new learners. And to me, just connecting those people like that there's a tremendous amount of personal satisfaction out of that for me. Even if it's not my gig and it's not what I teach, there's something that makes me feel great about connecting those trainers and partners with their community and giving them all a place to do this very professionally and on their time and schedule and do what works best for them, tailored approach. And I'm not going to lie, there's a little bit of an adrenaline kick when we go to launch something and it does really well and we get great feedback. It's like a nice little shot of, espresso, whatever. But I feel good not only about the work, but I feel good about the experience, right? That's that shot of adrenaline I was talking about that you get from the situation. You get this shot of satisfaction and positivity out of it. And it motivates me, and it actually carries over. And this is, not something that a lot of people think about when they think about doing a side hustle. I think I'm making an assumption there, but um, it it helps me stay motivated to do my primary job in a different way. The things I learn in my small business as an entrepreneur carry over into my primary duties and my primary job, um, in my daily work. And so the company I work with gets to benefit from the skills I develop in a small business environment, especially when they can't give you that directly in the same line of work. So I deal with, a very fixed customer base in my primary work. I I I deal with a ton, like a huge span of different things in work. So I'm not bored with my work. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't be exposed to the same lessons, the same experiences, the same risks and benefits in my primary career as I will in my entrepreneurship. And I feel like I'm a better uh, worker for Amentum. And I was a better worker for BMT before that. And I was a better worker for the Coast Guard before that. As someone who has experienced this on my own and stepped out and taken my own risks, because when I think about spending my company's dollars, I can relate to that as a business owner. And when I hear the management speak about a particular concern, I can relate to that as the person who's, been the primary bearer of that stress in my own business. Also, you have a unique appreciation for the relationship between revenue and profit and cost and everything else that it comes with managing the finances with a small business, and a big business for that matter. But you may be removed from that to a certain degree in your primary work at a large business, and so that side hustle, that entrepreneurship on the side, that work at, in your own small business, the accountability for that, all those lessons, you're just racking them up constantly, and you're able to roll that perspective back into your corporate life or your 9 to 5 or whatever you want to reference it as. I never call it my 9 to 5. It's never been 9 to 5. First of all, I don't want people to misunderstand the whole side hustle thing either. If you think that you're just going to do minimum clock punching at the career you work at during the day, and then you're going to spend every other waking minute that you are willing to work doing entrepreneurship, I hope your entrepreneurship is paying off, because that's not the way to get ahead in your career in most cases either. So you have to be very careful about how to balance this. So if you're, and I hate to use the word younger, but if you're earlier in your primary career and you haven't really established a good balance with work life yet, or with work life yet, between doing multiple streams of income and obligations and your family, then you need to very carefully wade into this and step into it very easily and slowly, because the momentum associated with entrepreneurship is usually pretty intense at first, right? You're racking up all these wins real quick, and you get thrown full headlong into it. And you have to remember that you're balancing that obligation with the obligation you have in your career. So, I've kind of set some lines for myself that I hope that maybe someone watching this that's interested in this type of life or experiencing this type of life now would be maybe able to gain some insight or perspective from. And one of those is that I don't take away from quality time with my family. Right? I'm not canceling birthday parties and missing out on my daughter's, dance recital, or telling the family we can't travel because I've got work this summer, so that I can run this small business. That's not going to happen, right? So I've very clearly made my own bounds so that this is okay with my spouse and not just me. It's okay with my kids and not just me. I want them to be proud of what they see from that entrepreneurship. I don't want them to regret it, right? So you're trying to teach them lessons as well about how to balance a primary career and that side hustle, how to work in a corporate environment or some other type of structured work environment, and working a small business, and you're passing on that legacy and those lessons to them through your actions, not just your words, right? So they can see that you have worked diligently to make sure that you've separated the lines clear enough so that it doesn't hurt everybody, right? And that's very important because it's very easy to get sucked into that. I've got to push a little bit harder. I've got to make this small business decision one more time. I've got to do this. I've got to take some money out of the family savings and put it over here and see if it does something. You have to be very intentional about how you balance work life in that situation. And by the way, anyone would like to jump into chat, put a question in, comments, whatever. It's wide open. Go ahead and drop your comments in, and I'll address them directly here on the chat if you'd like. So that's one of the things I'm very sensitive about. On the corporate side, when I got my job with my current employer, Amentum, I made sure that they understood that I owned this small business when we started, because it is not it would be very disingenuous of me to hold that back in the interviewing process and not disclose that information to them and then expect them to be okay with it afterward. You need to get all those cards out on the table. So if you own a small business and you're thinking about doing multiple streams of income and you're not going to own one of those businesses you're going to work with and for, you need to make sure you communicate that to the owners or the managers of that other business so that you can make sure you're all on the same page. Because if you're like me, you're going to have a strong social media presence for your work, or you're going to at least try to. And you don't want them to be surprised by that. Like, hey, I see you talking about your small business all the time. What's that, right? That wouldn't be good. You want them to not be caught by surprise by the fact that you're doing these things and that you do these things. Also, have to be very sensitive to the fact that they want the most of you that they can get as well. And that's nothing wrong with that. Most of the time, you're getting paid pretty good to do what you do. Fair compensation for fair work and all that good stuff. And that's between you and your employer. But you have to be very careful to honor your commitment to them in a way that doesn't compromise either your small business or the method of employment that you have with them. So that's very important. Now, if you're a consultant and you are a small business owner and you're doing other consultancy, that's a little different. You may or may not need to disclose who your other clients are to certain clients, and that's a different topic entirely. I'm talking mostly about if you're working for a company that you do not own during your primary work hours, and then you run a side business or some other means of small business in a partnership or whatever on the side. So that you can see there's a different conflict there, right? The other thing is you better not be in competition with your primary provider, right? So let's say I work for Amentum. I'm not going to be competing against Amentum, right, for work on contracts and bids and things like that. First of all, it'd be wildly unethical to do that. Second of all, it'd be really rude to do that to people who hired you and took care of you. And it would not be a good way to make a good impression with your employer, right? So it would not be good. So to be very sensitive to these things, you have to know where to draw the lines between the service you provide, your primary employer, the services you provide as an entrepreneur, the different client bases. You don't use your primary job to push your side business further. I don't go to meetings in Amentum and say, hey, look, by the way, I own this business, and if you guys would like, I can get you discounts on all this stuff because we work together, or you're a client of Amentum, or any of that stuff. Nope, I keep those two completely separate. And the only way I would ever bring any of that together is if they approached me and said, we're interested in working something out with you. And that is it, because it'll never be appropriate for me, in my eyes, for me to bring my personal business to them as something that they should consider, right? It just, to me, that's just it's not the right way to do business with my employer. So a lot to digest there, right? We talked about different motivators for the side hustle. We talked a little bit about money. We talked a little bit about risk. We talked about different benefits of having a side hustle. We talked about how to manage the relationship with employers. And in the end, you have to remember something, I think, to be able to know you're doing the right thing. Because there's times when I am upside down on the budget, or I'm upside down on time commitment, or I just feel stress, or I've mismanaged something on my calendar and I've got to figure out how to get out of that little bind. It's always I default to honoring my commitment to my employer, and I will push back something for my small business in that regard. And this is one of the reasons why my model is set up the way it is, so my clients aren't directly dependent on me for customer support throughout the day. But there's a certain amount of, at the end of the day, when you go to lay your head down, do you go to bed smiling, right? And I've actually had this conversation with one of my partners a week or two ago, that a few weeks back, I was working really diligently on something. I had to wake up for work the next day. I knew I had to get all this stuff done. There's no way I was going to get everything done for my primary employer plus my small business and get a full night of sleep. So I just didn't. I stayed up and worked. And my wife comes downstairs at like 4 o'clock in the morning and says, "What are you doing? Like, why are you awake right now?" And all I could do was look at her and smile and say, "Hey, it just took forever for this, for this course to load, or for this module to convert to video form. And hey, but I got all this stuff done." And I was smiling. And she's like, "Dude, this is what are you doing?" Right. And then I go to bed, with 2.5 hours till I got to wake up and do it all over again. And when I went to bed, I was smiling. I had a big smile on my face because I got everything done and I was very satisfied. I felt like I had accomplished a lot. I felt like I was doing the right thing for everybody. And I felt like I was in a good place with investing that time. I wasn't upset about it. Now, I am not in any way, shape, or form encouraging you to do that on a daily basis. That would be a recipe for disaster. That is not sustainable. And I did that for 2 years in my doctorate. I was not fully functioning normally because I was doing it so frequently to get through those studies while I was working full time. So I do not encourage you to do that full time, but it is something that you can hang your hat on when you can say, "Look, I am balancing it. I'm making it work. It's not putting an undue strain on my family. It's not impacting my primary employer. Everything's good." And I went to bed smiling, right? You did your taxes, you were smiling. You have to pay taxes. I'm not saying you smiling because you get to pay taxes. I'm saying you didn't feel terrible about the finances that year. When it was all said and done, you came out in a good position. I've mentioned a few times, I'm not making, hey, Rob, I am not making it work. Hey, look, it is hard, right? And it's funny, Rob, is I actually did some experimenting, right? I talked about the small business, like you get to do these things and try them out. There's a little bit of adrenaline associated with that. I put a bunch of money into different types and forms of advertising this past year as like an experiment. And I was like watching the metrics and checking out my clicks and doing this and that. And in the end, it was a total waste of money. I look back and I go, probably works great for other businesses, but this isn't the right thing for my particular application. Didn't work at all. Accounted for like half of my losses that year. And I just chalked it up to an experience. I said, "It's all right. I'm good. I didn't, take money off, I didn't take food off the table to do this." But it was very, I did not feel like I was making it work. I was like, man, I could have cut back on the investment a little sooner and saved myself some money. But you know what? It's okay. Lesson learned. Saving for next year. Rob, if you're still with me, and I think you are, I can see you still watching there. Let me know of something that you've done this several times. Is there anything that in particular that you think you absolutely would not repeat that mistake again as an entrepreneur, or even a lesson you learned that you think is super valuable that maybe I didn't cover, that you think people could benefit from? Go ahead and jot it down. And by the way, for those that are, if Rob is typing, which I hope he is, for those that are watching this later on, or even now, Rob is going to be joining me for a live stream some point this month. I still owe Rob a date. So Rob, I owe you a date, but we're going to bring Rob on, and Rob's got a lot of experience in industry, and he's always talking about good stuff, and just a great guy to sit down and chat with. So, heads up, Rob is going to be on a Life Cycle Live soon. It's going to be a good time. Um, yeah, it's tough. So for those out there that are, putting in the time to try and make it work, I salute you. For those that are, thinking that they are losing touch every once in a while with exactly how to balance that, it's okay. Hit pause. Couple things I've done. I am a big fan of using uh, applications to track my work, so I know how well I'm doing and whether I'm falling behind or I'm on point or how big my backlog is. I use Trello uh, to organize my small business life on Kanban board, and I track exactly what's on my to do list, and I track a lot of what's in the backlog, and that's where my stress is. To be honest with you, yes, I try not to look at it too often. I get guilty about what I haven't completed yet. Um, oh yeah, go ahead, Rob. Thanks for weighing in. I'm going to go ahead and address this point you made. And then we can get you back to talk about it in short time on when you get to join us for a live session. But yeah, you can see in the chat here, guys. Rob's talking about it's somewhat redundant, but the self-care aspects are really important. What you said about boundaries for your family is really important. Connecting to your values is huge. Yeah, and Rob, you touched on something in that last statement. Connecting with your values is huge. I have no doubt in my mind that a significant portion of my motivation to work as an entrepreneur in my own small business, outside of my primary employment, is just a lifelong lesson that I learned. It's a value that I've held. My grandfather was a small business owner. My dad owned many small businesses while he had other means of employment as a primary employer. It's just part of my upbringing. It was part of my DNA, I suppose you could say, to do that. And it makes me feel like I'm honoring a little bit of the legacy that those gentlemen established. My grandfather's no longer with us, but he owned his own business for decades, and he wasn't a rich man, but he was a happy man, and he succeeded, and he took care of his family. And my grandmother was taken care of when my grandfather unfortunately passed. So he did it right. He never did anyone wrong. He always kept good people in good spirits, and he did the right thing for people. And he was a helper more than he ever hurt anyone with his work. So, to me, he succeeded in that regard. And my father carried that through and showed me that when I was a young man, and I would go work with him on the weekends. And that's another thing. You can use this opportunity, like I said before, to kind of lead by example. My dad would take me to work with him on these side jobs on weekends, at nights and stuff. And we would work together, and he would show me the value of hard work, and he would show me, the value of like earning money and how to manage yourself and how to communicate with people and how to work hard for someone else, and do all these things before I even thought about getting into a career. And so, it's just kind of ingrained in you, and you may have experienced that yourself, or you may be trying to teach that lesson to somebody else, and you're instilling values in other people or establishing values with other people in your life. And you're connecting with those values, and you get a tremendous amount of reward from that. So absolutely, Rob, huge topic, great point. And I'm sure we'll talk about that more when you join us here in a couple of episodes. But anyways, folks, I'm going to try and wrap up here. We're 33 minutes in. I try to keep these right around a half hour. Of course, if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us here on LinkedIn. I'm hoping to get LinkedIn live here soon. I've been waiting eagerly, and I'm not denied yet, so that's a good sign. It's been a couple weeks, so I'm just hanging in there. But follow us on LinkedIn, and of course, you should subscribe to us here on YouTube and follow the channel here on YouTube, because this is our primary home for posting videos and keeping you guys up to speed. And if you look back at the live archive, I've got all of our live episodes saved up here, and we're talking about all kinds of crazy stuff from episode to episode. It's never the same thing twice. But yeah, anyways, I appreciate you guys joining us. Check out eastpartnership.org. If you're looking for a good RCM course, we're kicking one off this Friday. Huge discount, $270 discount per enrollee. So we're never going to offer that type of discount again. eastpartnership.org. Go to Reliability Center Maintenance. Learn RCM from one of the best in the business, Jesus Safante of Conscious Reliability. And then, of course, we are super ecstatic about the launch of AM 103, Asset Information Management with Agreement Asset Management Academy. Suzanne is amazing. Her course is unbelievable. She has all types of stuff to offer. And when has data ever been more important than now? Like, seriously, if you are managing assets and you don't have a solid asset information management program established, what are you doing? Like, stop talking about advanced tech and metrics and gathering data, digital twins, and all that stuff if you're not willing to take a structured and deliberate approach to managing your asset information. So check out the courses there at eastpartnership.org. And as always, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. It was great having you guys with me. And I always try to close with the same message: be a good human being to other people. Take it easy.